Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today is Logan Stone.
How's it going, everybody? Everything
I just
good?
want to make sure you got the homework, Logan. I
Yeah,
asked that you watch the documentary
right.
about the 1986 Bulls. Is that 1996 Bulls?
Right.
Did you watch that?
See, I got confused, and I did watch the '86 Bulls, and was really like
Oh,
they weren't very good. So I was just, are you sure
so you
that's
got
the
the
team?
wrong message from it. My bad.
Yeah, no, no, Jordan. And are you going to fire me for it? Because I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
it's a
No,
very
this
Ted
was
Lasso
it.
thing to do. Okay,
I gave
cool.
you strict instructions. I bought all the players you wanted to buy. I let you go one game with them, and you're gone. That's it.
I mean, do you really need a second chance in life? Right.
No.
Uh,
Leeds fired Jesse Marsh is what we're referring to there. But we're not going to talk about that. We are going to talk about LA Galaxy, LAFC, and we are going to be having a guest join us in just a couple minutes here to talk LA Galaxy and LAFC. So we'll preview those two teams. And then we're also going to be doing this episode's probably going to drop late Tuesday, early Wednesday. Wednesday night, we'll be doing a live preview on the 8th for some of the other teams. We realized we have to speed up the previews a bit. So we're doing that. So what you're going to get is you're going to get this episode in your feed. At like 7 a.m., you're going to get the next Ted Lasso recap. And then that evening, you're going to get another live preview that'll be on the podcast feed Thursday. But if you want to join us on YouTube, it'll be on Wednesday. So pretty much 3 days back to back to back content. So that's good. Logan, tell us who we have joining us.
yeah, so we have Gio Garcia. He actually jumped on last year, and I believe Jordan. I can't remember exactly if he had done both. I want to say he did both last year as well, but I can't remember if it was just LAFC or if it was the
I think it
Galaxy.
was
And
just LAFC.
was it? I
I
just
think
can't remember. I can't put two and two together. But we did have Gio on last year, and this year he is going to talk both LA Galaxy and LAFC, and lots to talk about with these two teams, Jordan. So I'm excited to get Gio back on and kind of just go through these teams because they're interesting.
that they are. And we are back, and we have Gio Garcia with us today talking both LA teams. How are you today, Gio?
Hey, fellas, I'm doing good. Pleasure for you guys to have me on again. It's always great to talk to you guys, and I'm doing good, man. The season's just around the corner. What are we like? I think like 18 days away from the home opener here in MLS. So I'm excited. It's going to be a big one, Traffico. So I know we're definitely going to talk about that. So I'm excited.
Yeah, crazy. By the time that we reach Saturday, we'll be 2 weeks, so 2 weeks away, and no team has their kit officially unveiled yet or anything. It's crunch time right
Yeah,
now.
it's insane. It feels like it was at least for me because obviously we know like LAFC won, but like I felt like everybody that covers LAFC. It's like a short off season because it's like
Yep.
just November and then like they send us things like in January and we're already back into it.
Yep. Yeah, especially it feels shorter this year than last year. Even last year they started earlier so they could be done for the World Cup, but it feels like we started even earlier this year because we have the break for the Leagues Cup. So we got a lot of stuff going on, I guess. But yeah, so we'll start with LAFC. We'll start with the easy one. They had a great year last year. First year head coach in MLS, Steve Cherundolo, takes them to the promised land that Bob Bradley wasn't able to get them to, and they won the Supporter Shield and MLS Cup. And I guess just reflect on last year and how big that was for LAFC to finally get MLS Cup, which I feel like they've made their goal since they entered the league.
Yeah, look, I think it was a big year for them. They look whenever you talk about LAFC, there's always a lot of expectations. There's always things that you expect this club to win championships. Obviously, under the guidance of Bob Bradley, they had a awesome foundation, but when it came to crunch time, they weren't able to get over that hurdle. And look, a lot of us, including myself, did not know about Steve Cherundolo because we knew he came from obviously from Germany and from Europe, and he had that experience. And we saw briefly his experience with the Las Vegas Lights. And, to be honest, it wasn't good. But, like, I think you can only be as good as your talent sometimes. And I think obviously we see that with Steve Cherundolo. So we weren't sure what type of coach he was going to be. We had before the start of the season, I had run into him and just different things like that, but I never got to know him. And I think once we got to know Steve Cherundolo throughout the season, how calm, how poised he was, how he did things different from Bob Bradley, and how he spoke to the players, and how he just the way how he did things was completely different. And I think LAFC needed that. And I think Carlos Vela definitely needed that. He talked about that. He mentions that it was a breath of fresh air, and you have those different things, that Bob Bradley is my way on the highway type of coach, and Steve Cherundolo is more calm and relaxed. And I think, switching that over once, we started seeing some of those games and how they were winning and what they were doing, then you could start seeing a couple more of those pieces. And, what happened, and you started seeing LAFC really get into the trenches and what they were doing, and if they were going to win Supporters Shield. And I think everything they did, and also the great work that front office did, obviously they signed, Gareth Bale, who obviously now retired, Christian Teo, who at the time was an amazing signing, even though he wasn't able to contribute and essentially in a big way. But all the signings and how they did, and getting Gareth Bale on a TAM deal, not on a DP deal, and all those different things. It was just amazing how the front office did that and how everything came together. And obviously you have a historic, championship, being at the game, just seeing the highs and lows of that championship game. I still couldn't believe what I was witnessing. It goes to the penalties and everything like that. And I think what they did and what Steve Cherundolo did with this team, I think he already knew what type of a team he had. And I think, to mention one thing, Chiellini mentioned, he mentioned during the season, he's like, Steve Cherundolo does not say a lot of words. He does not speak to the guys when in the locker room, but he's like, when he speaks, he went to say as long as he's right, So I think Cherundolo really knew the team he had and what he needed to do, and he was going to do it his way. And, like I said, at the beginning of the season, there was a lot of questions, but as once we see these tougher games, once we saw them beat Galaxy at the Bank of California, once we started to see that they beat Austin FC, who they lost to, I believe, twice during the regular season, you started to really see that, hey, this team is going to live up to expectations, because to me, and I think everybody else, was championship or bust with the type of talent they had. And, they were able to meet those goals. Those aren't easy goals when you have a championship or bust. You have Carlos Vela, you have Gareth Bale. It is easy, right? It gets easier when you have those players, but there's a lot of expectation. There's a lot of emotion and everything, and a lot of pressure when it comes to that. And LAC finally did it last season, and it was amazing to watch.
I was gonna ask you on that fact, just the fan reaction. What was it like around LAFC, like LA area? I mean, I know they've always been that club that people kind of look to be that competitive team that's going to run away with a couple MLS Cups, and finally it feels like the pressure's been released, and now this team can just go out and start dominating league. Is that kind of the feeling that LAFC had, just that pressure being released, and then now looking forward to, all right, what else can we achieve as a club?
Yeah, look, that's the biggest thing for LAFC was to win a championship, and obviously that's what the fans wanted. That's what the fans demanded. Look, anytime you have fans and you speak of that, right, with the type of talent they've had over the years, and the type of historic seasons that they had, right, to go back in 2019, breaking the MLS wins record or points record, and all that, what they did, and I think when you fall short, and I think now also that was a big thing that the Galaxy fans would say to LAFC, like, hey, yeah, the club is good, and just interact with them, but you guys haven't won a championship. Now they won a championship. You can't really say that anymore. And since the league has entered, we've seen how LAFC has done things, and and we'll probably get into the issues that the Galaxy have had, and the way LAFC has gone about it. Look, I know a lot of people that work there, and they put in a lot of work, but this is not by surprise, right? You don't just recruit a player like Gareth Bale to come in here. You don't just recruit players like Chicho Rango, right, and just different, who's also obviously is no longer with the team, but the scouting department, how they built the LAFC 3252. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and building what that franchise is, and building that culture, right, the LAFC culture. It goes so much more, and I think winning that championship just solidified all the hard work that they've done for the last 5-6 years leading up to that moment. And I took my hat off to them, because I've seen it since the 2018 season, and how they've done it and how they've been different. Now how they've, each year there's been so much expectation. Look, being in LA, you're gonna have there is like a lot of expectation, and winning those championships just solidifies them. And I know they got CCL this year, MLS, right? They're gonna play close to probably 50 something games this season, which is gonna be crazy. And I know fans are gonna be hungry for as many championships as they could potentially win this season.
Yeah, I mean, really, we're adding in the Leagues Cup in the summer. You have the Open Cup that they'll be qualified for, Champions League and MLS. There's like 5 trophies up for grab there that they could have a legitimate shot at. But yeah, so you mentioned bringing in Bale, who I feel like if he doesn't get that header right to tie the game up, would it have been looked at as more of like a bust signing? Because he was it seemed like he wasn't featured a lot. He had some injury problems again. Maybe that's why he ultimately decided to hang it up. He couldn't really stay on the field that much. But what is Gareth Bale's legacy at LAFC in his one season?
Look, if it wasn't for that game, the game tying header, I think everybody was calling him a bust. We were like, at that point, it was just very disappointing because, Mahalo Poku was getting more minutes than him. And, we just don't understand like why he had re-aggravated his back, why he never, I don't believe he played 90 minutes. Right. But look, I think, to me, in my opinion, I think Gareth Bale is going to go off in the sunset and going to be viewed. Anything that people, the only thing they're going to remember about Gareth Bale is that game tying goal, and that's how he should be remembered because he's done it all the way throughout his career. He's done it with Real Madrid, right? He's done it multiple times in those big games, and he did it with LAFC. But if you're right, leading up to that, he didn't show up. And, and I think when you get a player like Gareth Bale, you expect them to step up at big games and big moments. And, with that, I said this before, like with that game time goal, all his sins were forgiven. I'm only going to remember him because of that game time goal and that performance that he did, because that's what they needed from big players, make big moments when the team needs it the most. And I think he was only in there for like 10, 15 minutes, but he did what he had to do to tie that game. Yep. And give him another shot going into PKs. And I think that's all you can ask for. And, and look, yeah, would you want Gareth Bale to play those 90 minutes and everything like that? Would the season probably look different? Yeah, but he wasn't physically able to do that. And he performed and he gave an exciting, and I remember just seeing that goal. I couldn't believe, because I think there was like 5 minutes or something like that left in the game in extra time. And I was like, there's no way they're going to lose it like this. And then all of a sudden that cross goes in and he hits the header. And I'm just in shock that it went in, because
I was shocked too. I was shocked too, but on the other end, because I'm a Philly fan. So that was
that was brutal. Yeah, because if you remember too, like, I'm blanking his name. I can't believe the goalkeeper. He got a red card. Ended up getting a red card. Maxime Crepeau ended up getting a red card, right? So LAFC were down a man, and it just like looked like it wasn't going to happen. And, they're at home and everything. And then just out of nowhere, Gareth Bale provides, a historical moment, that final. A lot of people are saying that, look, I haven't watched as many finals as other people, but like, yeah, that to me, that final, and at least referring to MLS, will probably go down as the greatest final in MLS history, just because everything, how it went down and emotions of being it up and down.
It's up there. I would say for the first 120 minutes, it's up there. I think the penalty shootout leaves a little bit to be desired because Philly really didn't step up to the plate in that shootout. God, I don't even think they made one, right? Where they made one?
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot, but yeah, I mean, if we had like if you had like where the goalkeepers are stepping up to take the shootout too, and it's going like 12-12, like that would have been legit. But yeah, it's up there for sure. Logan, I'll let you ask the next one.
Yeah, I just loved Gio painting the picture and watching Jordan just completely like.
Yeah. Look, I was like, look, I was gonna say you had John McCarthy, the unsung hero, who's a Philly kid, who played right Philly. I don't recall if he played in the year as academy. He comes in. Has a hair story. There was just so many stories on the LAFC side that obviously if you're on the Philly side, you're like, F this, man. Like, no, this
Well,
Yeah.
I was watching it. I was watching it at the stadium. They had like the watch along thing, and I was telling my friends and anybody next to me, I said, when McCarthy's in, I'm like, we can't go penalties because this guy is awesome at penalties. Like McCarthy is
I
really
didn't know
good.
that.
And I'm
I
like,
didn't
we
know that.
cannot go penalties. And then, we didn't. We at first, Elliott scores or whatever, and we're like, yeah, all right, no penalties. And then it's the dagger with the bail, and you're like, oh no. Now McCarthy is gonna come up and save all these penalties.
You want me to tell you a cool story? So I got to talk to McCarthy, obviously, right after the game, right after they won the championship. And then the next day we spoke to him again, and he shared the story that he went up to the coaches. This was before Maxime Crepeau had gotten injured. And he told us that he went up to the coaches because I guess he knew and they knew he was a better keeper at saving PKs. To your point, he went up to them like maybe 6 minutes or whatever, right before Crepeau got injured. He's like, just keep warming up. We'll let you know if you're going to come in for the PKs because they're going to make that sub. Well, he hadn't approached the coaches and they weren't sure. And then as soon as Maxime Crepeau got injured, like McCarthy was already ready to come in for those PKs. With like that just tells you who he is and thinking like ahead, right? Because he played a couple of games during the regular season, but we didn't really see much of him. We saw that some acrobatics and stuff, but we literally did not know anything of him. And then that final, we learned a lot about him, and him just sharing that story just spoke volumes to me of where he is, and just always being ready, especially when it comes to the final. And he stepped up in the biggest moment, which was insane.
Yeah, an LA hero, right? And that is what he is now.
Yeah, we'll talk about some more heroes and some big players because I want to get into the departures because they had some big ones and especially one that just dropped recently that I think shocked the whole MLS as far as the people that cover it. Chicho Arango gone to Pachuca. You had a guy that scored, I think, right around or at 30 goals in 2 seasons for LAFC. Seba Mendez, Latif Blessing is gone to the Revs. Some pretty big pieces, especially Chicho gone. How big are those losses for LAFC and what they're trying to, kind of build on in 2023?
Well, I'll start off with the midfielders. Latif Blessing, he was beloved by LAFC fans and everybody. I would say prior to Chicho, he was probably everybody's favorite player. He was amazing. He always took photos with people, interacted with people. I know he went to go play pickup games with people. He was a cool dude. Awesome, amazing. But I think once they started getting the signings of, Kellen Acosta and what Jose Cifuentes started doing and Elias Sanchez, and then last year you also had Seba Mendez, there was not that much of a role for Latif Blessing, even though he had been awesome for LAFC leading up to that point. There was just more talent. There was just more people there was just guys that were more specific. Ilie being that, that 6 or, Acosta being able to play from between the 6 and the 8 as well, the different dynamics. And Sifa was a little bit more offensive. And I think, him moving on, I think I kind of saw that coming because, there was at times that when he wasn't playing last season, he had mentioned something in his Instagram day, something along the lines that he wasn't happy and things like that. And look, it happens when you're not getting that playing time and you're used to getting that playing time, even though it's off the bench. So I think they are going to miss him, but especially now because the midfield's looking really thin for LAFC, especially with those 2 departures. And Seba Mendez, he didn't really get to play when he was with LAFC, but when he was with the Ecuadorian national team, you saw him flourish, and you're like, wow. Like, why didn't he get some minutes, right? Like, why wasn't Seba Mendes playing? If he's doing this at the World Cup, like he could surely do this for LAFC. But Acosta had already cemented himself. Elias Sanchez already cemented himself. And, like, I don't think anybody was going to start over those 2 players. And then you have, obviously, Sifu, who was also an offensive threat. So I think it was really hard to at times to give Seba Mendes when all these other players already established themselves. I think, to me, Seba Mendes will be missed, even though he wasn't able to contribute last year, because it seems like this season he probably be able to. He was going to be able to contribute a lot more, but he ended up going, I believe, to Sao Paulo in Brazil, and they were going to Brazil. So it's unfortunate, but look, a solid player like them, after you have a great World Cup performance, you expect them to move on. And when I saw the type of performance he was having at the World Cup, I was like, he's not coming back. He's just not. He's just too talented. Someone else in Europe or wherever is going to pick him up. And he ends up going to Sao Paulo. Chicho Arango, man, he was amazing player, even a better human being. Everybody loved Chicho. Everybody. I mean, some of the heroics games that he had. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that goal against the Galaxy was insane. You know, in the playoffs in the 90th minute, he just scores that game-winning goal. And you know that because that game against the Galaxy, people, I don't know how much people recall, but Galaxy had a chance to potentially beat them, and the tide had turned to the Galaxy. The once Dejan had tied it 2-2, like the
Yeah.
tide had turned, and there was a lot. There was a. I know being in the stadium, a lot of people were like, "Oh, dang, this may not happen," you know. And I think it was like an error between Jonathan Bond, Galaxy goalkeeper, and the defender that led to that corner kick. You know, Kellen Acosta provides a corner kick, it lands somewhere in the 6-yard box, and Chicho Arango is there to put it in. And to me, he was one of the most. To me, he was one of my favorite players to watch during the season. Just how he played the game, how he attacked, everything. I think the LAFC are definitely going to miss him. I know they weren't able to make him a DP because the owner had mentioned it's going to blow up the roster. I don't know why they couldn't make him a TAM or a super TAM. You know, I don't know how much that messes up with the rules. You know how the Sally cap rules with MLS is so tricky and stuff. But to me, typically when a player asks for more money, you know, a lot of people kind of look down on it and like, why are you asking for more money? But Chicho earned everything he's gotten. Like everything, he deserved to be, to me, $1 million player, $1 million salary type of player. He to me, he just deserved it because everything he did, and I don't think he was stepping out of line. He's every year he was with LAFC, especially I think that was the COVID year when he first came. You know, LAFC was really struggling in the 2021 year. Excuse me, they were really struggling. He kind of put them on their back. You know, Carlos Vela was injured and all those different things, and he just proved time and time again he was that guy. And I think they're definitely going to miss him. You know, when Chicho, you know, I think he wanted to stay, but if unfortunate they weren't able to pay him more. And look, sometimes this is part of the business, and I think this is Chicho. I was thinking like if they don't pay Chicho, he has to go because this is when he's hot. This is when he's going to be able to make more money, you know. And he's had the production. He proved that he deserves more money, right? And I think it's unfortunate just how the things go, and you know the MLS salary caps. And I think they are going to miss him because I know they prefer to play with 3 wings, even in that 4-3-3 formation, but as a number 9, sometimes you need a number 9 like Chicho to hold the ball, to be a physical body, and those different things like that. Maybe Bouanga could be that replacement, but we'll see. But I think what Chicho did in his 2 years with LAFC was amazing, and to me was part of the reason why they won a lot of the games that season because sometimes they weren't able to score, and he was able to get a tap, and he was able to score. And like I said, he scored against the Galaxy in the playoffs, and he also scored against Austin FC in that next round. And I'm gonna miss him. It was just exciting to watch. It was an exciting player, awesome human being, and you know I wish him the best in Pachuca.
Yeah, that was always something amazing to me because I think I remember in the summer they were talking about moving him, and I was like, "Why? This guy is like tearing it up." And then even after that, he continued going on. I was like, "Oh, maybe they'll keep him because he's so crucial." But why would they want to get rid of him? But it maybe I don't know. I guess he was gone either way. But I was thinking maybe because they won, they're like, "All right, we can let him go." And but it seems like they were content to let him go anyway.
Yeah, to me it just never made sense. Even in the summertime, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
to me it just never made sense to try to let him go because I think they wanted a number 9 that defended more and did a lot of those things. He did do some of those things, but maybe not to Steve Cherundolo's at that summertime way. You know, obviously we don't know what's going on in the locker room, but I think there's a couple of reporters that had reported on Twitter that, you know, Steve Cherundolo wanted a 9 that defended a lot more. At the time, Chicho wasn't defending as much. But I mean, he's giving you goals, right? He's not necessarily slouching it out there in the field. And I think
Well, yeah, and LAFC only gave up 38 goals this year. So why do you need your forward to defend more? Like none of it makes sense.
Exactly. Exactly. Look, that's what just to me it was interesting. You know, and I think of the U22 initiative. I forget who they are. I think they got Mahala and Sifo under that, and then I think if you have your third DP has to be around the same. You know, it gets tricky. You know, even for me, like even some like, man, what's going on with MLS? To trying to understand all the way about the roster building and everything like that. But look, I would have loved for Chicho to say, well, we'll see. We'll see how much they're going to miss him. I think they're going to miss him a lot. LAFC knows that. And I think he was crucial. He was crucial for what they did and how they run things. Now, I think I'm very interested to see how, if they do pick up another winger, they do pick up another winger, how they're going to run that 4-3-3 formation. Because if there's not a number 9 to have that, that has those number 9 attributes and qualities, I think Bouanga could potentially do it. But we'll have to see, and I think we'll see what Steve Sherrill and company do, because they do have the summer transfer window as well. If things don't work out for them.
Yeah, so talking about bringing in somebody, it looks like they brought in a forward or winger called who's only 20 years old, Stipe Buick from Croatia. But I mean, he's only 20. It looks like he's only scored 5 goals in 3 seasons for his club team. So what type of role do you see for is this going to be more of like a bench option, or are they really looking at having him come in and challenge for a spot?
I think anytime you bring in, a young player like that, 20 years old, 6 feet, you're going to want a bigger expectations for him. But for right now, I think, if I'm just thinking off the bat, I think the starters for me would be Bouanga, Carlos Vela, and then Mahala. Those would be your top 3. You put Bouanga at the 9, or you have them rotate between the 9 position. But yeah, Buick's definitely going to get an opportunity. We'll see if they do sign another winger. They are missing a couple more players that could sign up a couple players in the midfield. That I think they need one more, 2 more pieces in the midfield, and maybe another winger. But yeah, he's definitely going to get a shot there. But we'll have to see. I know they played yesterday. A couple people had tweeted that he looked good. It's a preseason game, right? You want to get as many preseason games. But look, once the regular season comes, once that first open game, we'll see if he even gets minutes against the Galaxy and that home opener on February 25th. Because those big games like that is where you see those type of players, what kind of players they are, and we'll see how much he's able to improve and impress the coaches from now to the start of the season. But yeah, he's right now with this current roster, he's definitely going to be used.
Yeah, so we had a mention on Twitter that was talking about they want us to go over a little bit over the depth, and they add Aaron Long. Is he a starting 11 player right away? Is he somebody that's going to fill into those center back spots for LAFC?
I think yes, he's definitely going to compete in there, because I don't think Eddie Segura is fully healthy, and then Biaga ended up going to FC Dallas, I believe, or somewhere in Texas. So obviously you don't got Biaga. You got Jesus Murillo. So yeah, Aaron Long, he's definitely going to compete there. It looks like it's gonna be Aaron Long and Jesus Murillo for that, but like there's gonna be a lot of competition. I did get to see Aaron Long against Colombia. I went to the Colombia versus U.S. men's national team game. It was cool to see Chicho go. This was right before Chicho was still an LAFC player. A few days later, now he's a Pachuca player. But I got to see Chicho go up against him, and obviously Count Acosta. But one thing I did notice from Aaron Long that's not so positive, he's obviously not known a player for his speed. He got beat a lot when it came to pace, and he doesn't have a lot of pace. And these were a lot of youngsters that Colombia had. They weren't the typical guys that the Colombian national team players. Only one that looks like had been there. Everybody looked really young except Chicho. It looked like Chicho and a bunch of kids. Like, no disrespect, that's how I kind of like the Colombian national team kind of look. But a lot of the younger guys were kind of beating Aaron Long on pace, and I think that may be an issue for Aaron Long, because there's fast guys in the MLS, So, and Jesus Murillo is not as. Also, I say he's fast, but you do need one of those two guys who's just going to sit back a little bit more. And it may be Murillo, because he may have a little bit more pace, but I think that's the only question mark on how I have on Aaron Long is if he gets beat, and if he's the last line of defense, it will potentially not be good for LAFC.
Yeah, it seems like he hasn't really been the same since his injury that he had a couple years ago, unfortunately.
But I will say it's a good signing, because LA Galaxy were also interested.
Mm-hmm.
And the Galaxy, which I know we'll talk about, Galaxy were interested in him, but he decided to go with LAFC. And you see that shift there that Elias Sanchez was also getting talked to by the Galaxy and ends up choosing LAFC. So there's a lot of things. If they're coming to LAFC is the number one option.
So it's like when Chelsea was trying to take players from Arsenal, the transfer targets.
Exactly. Yeah, you can put it that way.
Before we move on to LA Galaxy, though, just looking ahead to this year, what would be a successful season for 2023, right? That's what you're worth. For 2023, what would be a successful season? Is it like a deep run in CCL? Is it a Leagues Cup? Is it repeating? Or because some of those pieces are gone, is it like just okay to just win Supporter Shield or make the playoffs? Like, what would be defining success for this team?
Look, first thing I will say, I don't think this team is complete, and I think this team could definitely change come summertime. I think Jose Cifuentes is a player that's probably going to move come summertime. There's just a lot of interest. He was speculated that he was going to leave over the winter transfer window to Brighton, I believe. I don't know what happened. I guess the deal ended up falling through. So I think this team is going to look a lot different come summertime, and if they are able to get a big piece, get another big signing. Let's say maybe it's not going to be Gareth Bale type of signing, but I think once the summertime, LAFC has shown to be able to attract players all around the world. I think right now this team is built, they're missing a few signings. But look, when you talked about this, yeah, it's a deep run. I know we saw the Sounders win CCL last season. Obviously, we know they fell short to the Saudi Arabia team who ended up being Flamingo. I think it was today. But yeah, I think all expectations is for LAFC to make a deep run at CCL. We know last time that they were in there, they lost to the final to Tigres. I think, even with the current roster, and I think them adding pieces at least the CCL final, and then you can kind of go from that. And then it gets tricky because you have Champions League, or you have what's the tournament called between Liga MX and
Leagues Cup, yeah.
Leagues Cup, right? So there's so many games. So you also want to showcase in Leagues Cup, right? You also want to do you have a bye because I think it's Pachuca and LAFC are the two teams that have a bye.
Yep.
They don't have to play that initial game, and then you go into that. So I think you definitely want to have an awesome showcase in Leagues Cup. And then how does the CCL? I don't know when that was going to start here in March, right? The LAFC goes down to Costa Rica. They go down to Costa Rica here in a month. So there's a lot of games. I definitely say CCL, go to the final. And I think you got to get a trophy, whether it's a CCL trophy or MLS trophy. We saw what the Sounders did. I think it's very tough, to do both. We saw how Sounders prioritize CCL, which is smart. And I think if LAFC do a similar thing, you can't really judge them. And then if they go really far and they end up winning CCL and you prioritize that, then I think that would be, if they just win CCL, that's a big championship. I mean, they'd be the second team in MLS. Then next year you talk about the Club World Cup. They got to get a trophy. Whether I think it would be, a deep run. If no injuries or anything like that, either you get a trophy CCL or MLS or even Open Cup. You got to win one of those trophies. You got a deep team. You have a deep roster. You have a solid coach. Even though there's been some turnover, for the most part, those core guys are there. You still got Vela, you still got Boanga, you got Mahala, you have a solid goalkeeper backup. For longest time, LAFC was struggling with a goalkeeper, even though I know it's going to be John McCarthy. So they have a lot of pieces there. They just need to have a couple more, and I think them winning one of those trophies, U.S. Open Cup, CCL, and that I think would be very successful.
All right, cool. I guess let's move on to the LA Galaxy, who finished fourth in the West last year, under Greg Vanney, which I think was their first time making the playoffs under Greg Vanney, because ever since he was hired there, I kept saying he was going to make it, and then they struggled a few times. But they exited the playoffs after losing to LAFC, as we just talked about. Chicharito had 18 goals last year. Jovic had 11. But some of their other DPs like Douglas Costa, Samuel Grandsir, Kevin Cabral were not really all that for this team. So I guess just reflecting on LA Galaxy's year last season.
Yeah, look, looking here at the standings, they ended, I believe they finished fourth or fifth. I forgot where they finished. Look, they finished down the bottom. Look, they didn't finish in the top.
Fourth,
that way.
Right?
Fourth?
They finished fourth. Yep.
And you had a lot of their DPs, or specifically Douglas Costa, did not perform well. Kevin Cabral was a terrible signing. That's why he's no longer with the team. Last season, even though once they signed Ricky Puig, it was amazing. He's another player that I love watching. The way he takes control of that midfield, the way he's his elite passing, just the way he slows down the game for the Galaxy and their team. It was just impressive and amazing to watch what Ricky Puig could do on the field. And I think when I was like, man, if you had a DP, either Douglas Costa or Kevin Cabral was able to perform as someone as a okay level, I think they performed for what they were getting poured, very poor. Chicharito was only consistent DP. Douglas Costa got injured. He got a red card. Kevin Cabral was just getting pushed around. He really lacked a lot of confidence. So it's kind of tough, even though they went 2 out of 3 on the DPs, or 1 out of 3 on their DPs. They made a great run. They battled with LAFC all the way till the end. It was a last-minute game winner, a heartbreaking game winner that moved on to LAFC. Because I felt like that game between LAFC and LA Galaxy had the chance of winning the MLS Cup, because just the way LA Galaxy finished the season hot. They're the hottest team going into the playoffs. And that's what it is when it comes to momentum. It just so happened LAFC just had more depth. And that's what ended up beating them. They just had more depth and ended up losing to a good team. I think last season, I think they were disappointed how they started, but they finished strong. But I think when you have these type of signings and you have this type of coach, like a Greg Vandy coach, you expect them to go a little bit further, at least at least to be able to meet at least an LAFC in the Western Conference Finals, I think that's what this team had the talent to do it. And I think on that aspect was disappointing, but I think the way they finished the season was very strong. And now we look onto this year, but I think the French project, bringing Grand Sir, Kevin Cabral, and Ryan Ravelson. If you look at it, it wasn't really a successful project, bringing in the French guys, because they brought a lot of French guys. Because to me, Grand Sir was the best signing out of those, but he was making north of 900,000, and he was effective. He did score a lot of goals against LAFC and then the big moments, but he just wasn't able to be as consistent as you expect a player that makes that much money, and now he's not with them. And on a system that depends on wingers, they're very thin on wingers to start this year. And like you said, there's 18 days left till the season starts. They have a DP slot open. Where are the signings? You'd like to have the DP, now to get used to them, and, you're going to have to count on Douglas Costa right now to be one of the wingers. And if he can't stay healthy, you kind of scratch your head right now with the Galaxy. But look, they're very talented, even with Ricky Puig and everything like that. They can have somewhat a successful season, but there's a lot of things that are hurting the Galaxy with, not having the opportunity to sign players over the summer transfer window. So they got till, April 24th when this transfer window closes.
All right, I want to get into kind of the juicy stuff, the stuff that's been blowing up Twitter. I know, because this will be quite a topic to kind of cover. I know a lot of LA Galaxy fans are not happy. A lot of league fans aren't happy. Since 2014, Chris Klein took over. They won an MLS Cup under his reign. But since then, it just has been kind of in turmoil. It seems like the club has just declined. The product on the club, on the field, just isn't there. And then you have LAFC come into the league, and LAFC look like the darling child. They're spending the money. There was a scathing article when Chris Klein was suspended by MLS for the Christian Pavone 2019 stuff with this transfer. It seemed that Chris Klein was given some leeway because of the financials. He brings in a new sponsor for the kits. He's bringing in great revenue, breaking records and TV ads and all sorts of different things. But then Galaxy fans, of course, are not happy because the product on the field just doesn't match what they're spending and what they're doing and how much money they're bringing in. Fast forward to this offseason, and Chris Klein is now given a contract extension. Can you kind of talk to just this situation as a whole? What's the vibe around LA? I mean, I can see clearly what it is amongst the supporter groups, but can you kind of just give us the lay of the land on what's going on with Chris Klein and how the fans and how does this all resolve? I just don't feel like there's really a solution that's going to make anybody happy.
Yeah, look, it's bizarre to me. You know, Chris Klein. Obviously, we know now he's being judged by how you know, by the type of money he brings in. But like, obviously, I think in the way the Galaxy are being, you know, they're owned by AEG. If people aren't familiar who AEG, they own Crypto.com, who is also Staples Center. They own Coachella. They own the LA Kings. They own the Galaxy. They own a number of venues and events and stuff like that. So it's a big corporate company. And to me, Galaxy falls probably, in my opinion, near the bottom, or it's not a priority. Let's put it that way. It's not a priority like potentially Crypto.com or Coachella or whatever to them. And I think you see an individual like Chris Klein who gets to keep his job even though the product on the field is not good, right? You talk about, you know, not winning championships, and I think to me it's just so odd when you look at, you know, even if you're AEG, you get to living in LA and being there, you get to see how LAFC has just kind of taken over just within the city of LA. You see more LAFC stuff, more LAFC paraphernalia all over the city. They just won a championship. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't get any bigger than that, right? You just won a championship, right? And the guy that's at the helm gets to keep his job, and you're like, what is going on, right? And to me, it just never made sense. And I think, to me, I've been saying this, I think AEG just needs to sell the Galaxy because they're not a number one priority. Their fans is not a number one priority. The way this team is being managed is not a number one priority. They also put players and coaches in an odd position to be in. Like, obviously, you want your fan support, but you're not going to go talk bad about your fans because of what's going on. So and then you also got your boss, who's Chris Klein, coming to see you guys practice, who's getting torn up on Twitter by the fans. So it's just like, if you're a player, a coach, is just so awkward, right? Greg Vanning has to answer for Chris Klein and all these different things. It's just such a weird work dynamic, and I think it's just weird. And I don't know how if I was Chris Klein, and you know, I'm assuming he's making millions of dollars to be in that position, so it's not a position he's just going to want to let go, you know, that easily. But whatever, him and Dan Beckerman, who's his boss, I had a supporter actually reached out. He wanted to be on my podcast. He'd been supporting the Galaxy, I want to say, since the beginning. He'd been in the supporter group since 2014. And he said he was just fed up. They all collectively decided to boycott the team, all the supporter groups, because they're frustrated by Chris Klein's performance and why. Even when the team didn't even announce that he got a new contract. They try to like be sneaky about it through like a YouTube video. And I think that's what really pissed off a lot of people, was like, you can't even be direct or honest. And I think you get to see how Galaxy how they run their business and how they go kind of like a snake oil salesman, it feels like. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the best way I can describe it. That's how the Galaxy are running the business with their fans. They're snake oil salesmen. And it's just like, bro, people can see through the BS. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like why, like, if no one likes to get treated that way, right? And I don't know what AEG things are like, oh yeah, it's just these soccer fans and everything. To me, is insane, because if you had a person who knew what they were doing, they would make way more money than Chris Klein is making for them. Look, LAFC just got a $10 million a year, I think $10 million a year, or $1 million a year deal with BMO, right, for the rights. I think it's a $10 million for 10 years or something like that, $1 million a year or something like that. I could have the numbers wrong. But like, Galaxy could do the same thing if they had someone that was a little bit more competent and, you know, was doing a couple more things, and for whatever reason, AEG, Dan Beckham, they don't see that. And like, yeah, Chris Klein is making you money, but imagine if a person knew what the heck they were doing. They would make this team way more money. You get better signings, you get more people in the stands. Because as far as I know, the way that MLS, the teams make money is by obviously the jersey sales, the ticket sales, and all these different things. And to me, it just seems like AEG is okay with the mediocreness that we see from Chris Klein. I don't think he's losing the money. I'm shocked he's not losing them. I don't know how that's possible. I'm flabbergasted, and I'm like, damn. And I think, it just gets to think like, I don't know what he does. Like, I literally don't know what he does. And I'm not trying to be rude. I get it. Yeah. I literally don't know what he does. They don't have at the time, I don't know if they have a stats person and all these different things that normal clubs have. They didn't have that. And that all falls on Chris Klein. Like, how do you not have this type of stats and looking at stats on how your players are when everywhere in the MLS and around the world have all these, these people that take stats and all these different things. They don't have that. And I'm like, what do you do? I've seen him a couple of times. And I just don't know what he does, to be honest with you. And I don't know how much he does of the recruiting and the type of players they're bringing. To me, as far as since Greg Vanney's come in, since when Guillermo Barros-Schelotto, Guillermo had the contacts with Argentina. He's the one that brought Christian Pavone. He's the one that brought all these Argentinian players and all these things. I don't think that was Chris Klein. Maybe he was cleaning up the deals or whatever, but I just don't know what he does. And it's unfortunate for Galaxy fans, and it's unfortunate for what they got to go through. But it's just that's just their reality, and it's unfortunate for them because even with all that going on, they almost beat LAFC last season. And you're like, I think if you just got to be thinking, they're like, damn, imagine if we had someone that knew what the hell was doing.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? It's not that hard to convince players. Maybe now it is with LAFC winning a championship, but it's not that hard if you start to change the culture. And I think what I'm noticing from MLS players are like, if you have a chance, LAFC is your first option and Galaxy is second option, because you don't really want to play in an empty stadium when you compare it, right? And you don't want to play when you're playing, fans are boycotting, and you see the atmosphere of what LAFC can bring. And if I'm a player, I'm right, I'm gonna go over there. I can go play Champions League. I can go there. I feel like it looks like all the players love it there. All the players love it. Galaxy just seems like the ownership. It's not the fans. It's just the ownership is bad, and the front office on how they're doing it. And I think it's bizarre to me, and I don't get it. And we'll see what happens because supporters aren't there. I know there are some fans are still going to go to the game. And look, fans should do what they want. If they want to boycott, they want to boycott. If they want to go, they want to go. And it's just sad because this is a big game. This is Galaxy's home opener game. They used to play at the Rose Bowl. You could sit up to 100,000 people, 90,000 people, whatever the number is. But we'll have to see. I don't know if Chris Klein's going to look at himself and because typically people in a position like that, in a situation, be like, man, maybe I should step down. But I don't get the sense from Chris Klein thinking like, hey, maybe I should put someone else, this team ahead of me, and step down. And I would just feel weird to be in a position where no one likes me and still continue to be working there. To me, it's just insane. But look, that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, this should be the premier MLS franchise, right? Like, this should be the biggest club. There's still so many articles over in the UK when somebody's linked to LAFC that calls them the Galaxy because that's the name they know, right? It should be a slam dunk to have. I mean, you won so many titles. You're the one that brought Beckham over. It should be no problem. But I'm looking at all this stuff. Chris Klein, obviously, I've been watching old games on the Apple TV. He played at Galaxy from 2007 to 2010 as a midfielder, but then somehow became the president in 2014 without any history of being.
Yeah, I think he was working within the front after his career. He had worked in there, and then I think the guy that was the president at the time. Look, I don't know everything, but he got promoted to that job because the guy that was there left, and he just got promoted. Like, so it was just. But look, it just goes to show that, like, just because you played in the league doesn't mean you're going to be successful, whether it's a coach or someone in the front office. And he's had more than enough time to prove to prove that he is the right guy. But look, if your bosses aren't going to fire you, if your bosses, you can only blame Chris Klein so much, right? If AEG,
at a certain point, it has to go to AEG. Yeah.
if AEG and the heads of AEG are okay with it, then it just goes to show that there's a big disconnect with the fans and the ownership group and the front office people. Because when you have a professional club team, your fans are always going to be upset, always going to say, but you at least want to know that they have your back. And it doesn't seem like you have your back. And I think it's just so weird how some of these companies operate, and you don't have the core of your customers who are the fans and the supporters, and you don't listen to them. And it's not like it's hard for like the Galaxy to recruit another GM. I don't think it would be hard. I think there's a lot of people that'd be like, oh, that guy's out. Oh, I'll definitely go put my hat on that. I can definitely run this club way better than he did. You know, like there's plenty of other people that, whether the Sounders or wherever, just name it, anywhere else that you've had somewhat of a success, and now you can manage a team in LA. You have the resources, you have the brand of the other Galaxy. There's just so many people that I would assume could take that job and do a much much better job than Chris Klein. But if AEG doesn't see it that way and they're okay with what I think what Galaxy has mediocreness of that, then it's only going to go so far. And I think maybe this is what has to happen in order to get new front office folks and everything like that. But not everybody that works at the Galaxy is bad. I'm going to say that. There's amazing people that work there. But
right.
Chris Klein being the face of that, and, you know, fans wearing clown shirts and everything like that of your face is just insane. It just kind of just overshadows of the work they're trying to do.
So I have a main question as an outsider that's watched Galaxy last season. You know, Chicharito was scoring a lot, but then kind of near the end of the season, I feel like Joveljic came in and started scoring a lot, but it seems like Joveljic would never start, right? It was always like coming on to save the day, or they couldn't figure out a way to play both of them in the game. What's the answer there for this year? Is it possible for them to both play in the same starting 11, or is it going to be sort of the same story as last year?
Look, that's what I've always wanted. Greg, this goes back to Greg. What Greg has told us, he said he doesn't like playing a 4-4-2. He just doesn't like it. And I'm like, I don't understand why. You have guys at double-digit scoring. Joveljic was a way better option than Kevin Cabral ever was, and that I knew that since the beginning of the season. He would come in, you give him 2 minutes here, he scores a goal. And I think what Greg Vanney, from what I saw, he just said that Chicharito and Joveljic are the same player, and I'm like, okay, they are, but like, what's wrong with two players that play similar and can score goals? Like that's something I could just never get through my mind. Like I'm like, and that's where I think there's a little bit like at least to me, like, I think Greg Vanney is a great coach. He's a solid coach, but to me, it's like, how can you not make 2 goal scorers work, even though they played similar, right? Like, are you not willing or open to switch your formation to adjust what they have to do, or play one ahead of the other? Like, even if you know, like a 1-1-1 at the top, you know, like, I just didn't understand that. And you saw Joveljic stepped up in the biggest moments. He tied that goal against LAFC 2-2. So it was going to essentially take it to overtime. It could have been anybody's game. And Greg Vanney just doesn't like playing that. Now, with the limited wingers that they have, if they don't get any wingers or any, you know, signings here soon, he's gonna be forced to play a 3-5-2. I've been a Joveljic proponent, and look, Joveljic was consistent throughout the whole season. The reason why he didn't get any minutes was because Greg Vanney kept playing, or play as many games as he should have. Greg Vanney kept playing Kevin Cabral over. Greg Vanney kept playing a bust of a player who was Kevin Cabral and who was Greg Vanney's guy. He was just too stubborn. To me, Greg Vanney was just too stubborn on wanting to keep playing Kevin Cabral. And just Kevin Cabral was never the guy. Unfortunately, he was just never the guy. And we just saw that with Greg Vanney really wanting to ride Kevin Cabral. That wasn't the solution. Joveljic was a solution, and what he's proven. We'll have to see. But I think I've always mentioned this. I always thought it was a mistake for him not to be able to figure out. And if he can't figure out how to play two goal scorers. Look, it may not be easy. It may be different. Maybe the depth and the bench is different, but why not go with your heavy hitters? You know, Jovic can go 90 minutes. Maybe Cheech is the one that can't play probably 80, 85 minutes, but that's something to me. It still boggles my mind. And people are like, oh, he doesn't. I'm like, bro, I've been watching this game for a long time. Anytime someone can score goals, it doesn't come around easy. Like, give that man as many minutes. He scored, what'd you say, 11, 12 goals?
11, yeah.
Half the minutes, half the games. In my mind, doing simple math, you give him the same minutes that Kevin Cabral got, or the same opportunities, because Cabral had amazing opportunities. He just couldn't finish. And I was like, in the back of my mind, every time I saw that, I was like, oh, that was Jovic. That would be a goal. That would be a goal, and that's what everybody kept saying. He's already said that he's the future of the Galaxy, the future of the Serbian national team. The Serbian national team was pretty solid. I'm assuming you saw them go up against Brazil. Even though I think they didn't make it past the group stage, but they're a solid team. They have a lot of talent there. And Jovic, to me, I love watching Jovic play. I think he deserves more minutes, and I think he deserves to play. With Chicharito, I just don't know why. That still boggles my mind. I hope we get to see him play more, and I think if Greg is able to adjust his formation, because you have a player like Ricky Puig who could give him that service, whether it's Chicha or Jovic, because I don't know, you just have two goal scorers there. Look, there's other clubs that play 4-4-2 or play with two strikers up top. I don't know why Greg Vanney doesn't want to or struggling to figure out how to play them together.
Yeah, it should always be, in my opinion, not sticking to a rigid system because that's what you like. It should be, if I am handed these players, I have to work with what I got, right? So if I have two strikers that are going to put up double-digit goals, then I'm going to try to get both of them on the field as much as possible together,
Yeah, you tell one of them to drop back more. You're going to tell Jovic, obviously, to drop back more because he's not going to want – Chicharito's not going to be the one defending, with all due respect to him. It's Chicharito's going to be the one up top. And I don't think Jovic would have a problem with that. He wants to play. Like, that's just – you know what I'm saying? Like, he has to do the dirty work. And, so I think also depends on the matchup, also depends who you're playing. But I think for most teams and most games, Jovic could be that guy to start with Chicharito.
All right, so looking ahead to 2023, they go and sign Memo Rodriguez, Chris Mavinga. Their defense was just not great last year, gave up upwards of 50 goals, have struggled tremendously with defense, it seems. They're struggling to find players to get into this team. You talked about it at length, that just the fact that they just seem to not be able to put, the pieces together that they need to put together, figure out how pieces play together. Looking forward to 2023, Gio, is there positive things that this Galaxy fan base can look for? And what do you expect from them there's no transfers coming in the summer. They have a transfer ban. They can't get transfers in. There's all this stuff with Chris Klein. It's got to be a distraction for Vanney, like you said. He's got to work with the guy. He's his boss. What does the 2023 season look like for this Galaxy team with very little added and, really just kind of in this spot where they're just going to be playing second fiddle to an LAFC right down the street?
Look, it's going to be a tough season for the Galaxy. I think it will, especially not being able to add players in the summer. So you got to add all of them before April 24th, before the MLS transfer window closes. So, look, you lost Grancer. You need to pick up another winger. I don't think even Douglas Costa is going to be that guy. Unfortunately, you're going to have to ride with him for this final season. The good thing is you have a goal scorer. You have Chicharito. You have two. We just talked about them. You have them. The other thing is you're going to have a whole season with Ricky Puig. Ricky Puig was amazing. You have Mark Delgado, who was also amazing. I feel like they're going to have a strong midfield. Their midfield's going to be really, really strong. You just got a lot of depth there as well, and what they can do. The issues come on the defensive end. Look, it's unfortunate for Juan Araujo, who was supposed to go to Barcelona. It didn't happen because Barcelona was 18 seconds too long. Whatever.
Yeah, that was awful. That was horrible.
Yeah, I feel terrible for Juan Araujo because he deserved to move on. Especially, even though if it was going to be where Barca be, he deserved to move on. And it's crazy how life works. You know, he has to come back and play with the Galaxy. Maybe he can develop his skills, and maybe he can go to Barcelona during the summer. That's the one positive thing, is that they're getting Jordan Araujo back, right back. You know, I'm assuming Raheem Edwards is going to be at the left back, and then you got Sega Koulibaly and then Martin Caceres. And Martin Caceres, I believe he came during the summer transfer window last season. So now you're going to have another full season with him. You have a solid goalkeeper in Jonathan Bond, even though they were scored on a lot. A lot of the stuff was just because, like, the center back pairing took the LA Galaxy a lot because it was Derek Williams. Sometimes it was Koulibaly. Sometimes I believe it was Eric Zavaleta. There was just injuries. So like Martin Caceres and Sergio Koulibaly could be those guys. Then you have somewhat of a solid foundation with Raheem Edwards and Juan Araujo. Where it gets tricky is if Juan Araujo leaves, the Galaxy can't bring any players, but their players can't leave. You know, so that's the tricky thing, right? So if Juan Araujo leaves in the summer, which I think he should, and hopefully the Barcelona interest is still there, then you're going to have to find a replacement, right? Who's going to be that guy? So I think they will have they can have a solid team, but not being able to add any pieces that summer, come that summer transfer window, is going to be tough for them, because what if injuries happens? What if something happens to, I don't want to name a player, to someone gets injured? Who are you going to bring? You know, like, what's going to happen? You know, what if you're not flowing? What if you need another defense? You know, what if Joe Araujo and someone else leaves, right? Like, how is replacement? So there's just so many questions. I think to start from now to the summer, they will have they have somewhat of a core, at least for the starters, to go. Let's say we give let's say all is good, and we give Douglas Costa 60 minutes, because he gets gassed out from 60 to 70 minutes. So he's a 70-minute player as a DP. Who's coming off the bench to replace him for the last 20 minutes? You know, who's giving you that intensity? Who's giving you that? You know, if I feel like the Galaxy will be a good team, it's just last season they just lacked depth. They had for the most part, to finish out the year, they had a solid starting 11. But when it came to the bench, you look at the bench and you're like, who am I going to bring? Like, who's going to? Efrain Alvarez, who I loved when he was coming up with G2, but he's proven not to be the guy. Unfortunately, he's not in shape. He doesn't take his career serious as you would expect him to be. You know, a player with so much talent, so just God-given talent. He only wants to work on the left foot and doesn't want to use his right foot. And he has the capability of scoring, but only with his left. But once you figure that out, once you shut him down, and he doesn't have the physique of a professional player, that's where it just gets limited for the Galaxy, unless they're able to sign a big DP or something like that from now into the 24th. But I think the same questions and concerns is going to be that Galaxy depth, because if you look at the stars, you're like, okay, they have a solid starters, but once you look at the bench, if those guys, say, like I said, one guy gets injured, that starting 11 starts to get weak. You know, as if they ever play 90 minutes with Chicharito and Douglas Costa, may not be able to play full 90 minutes. Like, you know, the pieces coming off the bench, they just don't got that depth, and I think that's the biggest Achilles heel this season.
All right, so you said that you think they'll be a good team, but what is a successful season for the Galaxy this year? They finished 4th in the West. You would think that they would want to go on an upwards trajectory, but what is successful for this Galaxy team?
Man, it's so tough, because I think that if everybody's able to stay healthy, and let's just say Joe Araujo is the only player that leaves this summer, you could definitely find a replacement for him somewhere. You know, I don't think they're going to finish as high as 4th, because the season's so long. And you have the Leagues Cup. You have the Leagues Cup, right? You're going to have those games. Both leagues are going to shut down. They're going to want to have a great performance during that. I just think the Galaxy are going to break down. I just, unfortunately, because they won't have that summer transfer window is so key and crucial, because that's how they got Ricky Puig. I think that's how they got Christian Pavone too. Those are big signings that change your team from being like, all right, the Galaxy last season went from like maybe not making the playoffs to like, bam, the hottest team. Ricky Puig was that guy. And you don't have that option this season. You don't have that option. Who's the guy? Give me the spark. Oh damn! I need a midfielder. I need a right back. We need to go sign a right back because we know Joe Araujo. You just don't have that. You got to do it now. You're right. If you're able to do that and sign everybody now, right? But then say your opponents know how to break you down. Like if we just sign a striker, we sign this or that. You're going. Everybody else has an upper hand on the LA Galaxy, and that's just unfortunate because of what Chris Klein did and how he handled those things. To me, I think they're gonna break down towards the end. I am gonna give them some optimism. I think with all that, I think they barely make it into the playoffs because I think now they're saying 8-9 teams are gonna fight for playoff. So half the league's gonna have a shot. Like I don't think the regular season is gonna matter anymore.
More than half. We're gonna have 18 out of 29 teams if they go with 9. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. Like so, they got a shot. If that happens, they have a shot. If 9 teams from each conference have a shot, like 18 out of 29 teams, they have a shot. I think they're going to be towards the bottom. Let me put it this way: they're not going to be as high as 4th, but I do think they'll be able to make the playoffs because Ricky Puig can change the game. And you may have some surprises. You may have other teams that may have injuries and everything like that. But if Ricky Puig and Mark Delgado, and I'm forgetting Brugman, if they're able to control the midfield, because a lot of these games, if you control the midfield, you may not have a solid defense, but if you can control that ball, not going back behind you, if you have Ricky Puig just commanding, Ricky Puig is so good in tight spaces, so good. And if you limit how many times the ball goes behind you, which Ricky Puig did, and that's why they were the hottest team going into the playoffs, I think Ricky Puig is really going to push them and everything. He's able to give them the service to Chicharito, Jovic, or Douglas Costa, whoever it is. I don't know. I don't see them finish as high as 4th because I got LAFC, I got the Union, I got Austin, Seattle. I just have those teams. Portland, I just don't have them as high as 4th, but I think they will get into the playoffs, and we'll see what happens in the playoffs. But I just think I see them in the playoffs. I think they can make a deep run at U.S. Open Cup because we saw what they did last year. But look, I think they got to prioritize. If they're able to have a deep run like they did in the U.S. Open Cup, then you got to prioritize Open Cup. You got to prioritize. It's going to be hard to prioritize League Cup unless you're hot and you're formed in the summer, right? And look, Liga MX teams aren't going to make it easier. They're very physical teams. They're going to push you, especially when you have Chicharito on your team. That they're going to want to make it known that like Liga MX is better, right? So I think they have a good shot at Leagues Cup. U.S. Open Cup. Because I don't know if LAFC, I don't know which teams are going to prioritize U.S. Open Cup when you have all these other tournaments going on. But I think where they could potentially win a trophy is U.S. Open Cup. And I think they got a good shot at that. And they have a good shot at making the playoffs. But I wouldn't put them, like I could be wrong, but I don't think they're going to be as high as 4th as what they were last year.
All right. Well, thank you. Gio, where can people find all of your work at? Where can people follow you?
Yeah, you guys can follow me at Gio Garcia LA on Twitter. I also have a podcast talking about both teams on LA Soccer Hub, all social media, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Talking about these 2 teams. It's a big season. You got the Apple TV. Now we're going to have everything under one thing. I signed up for Apple TV. I'm excited. I've been watching, some of the videos and everything, some of the things that the content's producing there. So I'm excited for that. So, I'm talking about both teams on the podcast. So, you guys check me out there at Gio Garcia LA or LA Soccer Hub.
That was Gio Garcia talking with us about LA Galaxy, LAFC. Logan, I want to just plead to you for a bit here. You got Apple TV, you got the MLS now. Go back and watch some of these games because let me tell you, this Galaxy team, when they were pre-Klein, right, were a sight to behold. Okay, like go back and they have, for people that don't know, they have every MLS Cup. They have every All-Star game on this service. They even have some classic games as well. I watched, I even live tweeted with it. I watched David Beckham's first start LA Galaxy versus Red Bulls. And guess who I saw entering the game? Chris Klein, was in that game as well. But I wanted to clarify some things that I was able to look up here. Chris Klein is the president, right? If you look at the GM history, he's never actually been the GM. And Bruce Arena was GM when he was here. And then it went to, it was like general manager and manager was like the same thing for a lot of people until like 2018 when they had Dennis Teclosa as their GM. And they had Dominic Kinnear as an interim manager. And then Bear Schletto was a manager. And then once Vanny got here, it looks like that's when Teclosa left. And then Vanny, it now says under Wikipedia, shared responsibility. So I clicked that and it took me to, I guess, an interview with Vanny when they asked about who would be running the front office. He said it's a collaborative effort and that's how he always operates. So Chris Klein and Kravoski, who is the, where is he at on this list here? Sorry. He's the technical director, Krasovsky, and Klein as the president and Vaney are the ones making these decisions for players. So it's not fully Chris Klein. Just a roundabout way of saying we don't know who the issue is. We don't know anything really, but Chris Klein got in trouble for whatever he did. And now somehow got an extension, and it is a mess. But Logan, I implore for you to go back and watch those days when you'll see Robbie Keane scoring and you'll have Beckham and Donovan on the field. Those were, and that one that you mentioned, the championship they won with Klein in 2014. Yeah, guess who built that team? Not him. It is mostly stacked still from their other runs before Klein took over. So, yeah.
No, I do want to go watch some of those because it was like a star-filled LA. Like I can always remember
Yes.
I had a neighbor that watched, and he was a Philadelphia Union fan. But like also,
Me?
yeah, you. No, he was a Union fan. Eventually, like he had a bunch of Union stuff in his room when the Union came
really?
around. But before then, he followed the Galaxy because the Galaxy were always the ones on ESPN. So he would follow the Galaxy, and he's a little younger than me, but he would follow the Galaxy. And I remember him having the Landon Donovan kit. Like I can remember those days. I can remember the David Beckham signing and how big of a deal that was for the soccer world at the time. I was not in it at that time, but just this team, man, I am excited to watch the Apple TV Plus stuff because I think it's great. And they have a great interview with Chicharito if you haven't seen it already.
I haven't watched that yet.
It's so good.
I was watching the player profiles earlier. There's a lot of good stuff on that Apple TV thing.
They crushed it so far. Like they really did. So we'll hope it continues in the quality of product.
All right, Logan. So we just, we just told everybody about the Apple TV stuff, but when we're looking at LA, we're going to do our season preview later, but just kind of what are your thoughts on that interview we just had with Gio and kind of where you see both of these teams heading into 2023?
What's kind of fun with that interview is that Gio convinced me because I had some questions about LAFC, but I was more convinced that LAFC is going to be fine. And I think with the money and resources that they have, that they'll continue to add players and get better. Maybe it's a little bit of a step back this year, but it's not going to completely blow up. I think that they're, one player away again from being a really, really good team. They're already a really good team, but I think getting back to that level of last year, they need somebody else to kind of replace Chicho. The opposite for LA Galaxy. He actually made me feel worse about the Galaxy than I already did because it seems to me that, and you mentioned this and he's mentioned it, this year you have US Open Cup, you have Leagues Cup, you have MLS Cup, you have Supporter Shield. You have the injuries that are going to happen because you have an aging roster. You have Chicharito, who's not going to be able to play all these games. You have Joveljic trying to figure out his role. it scares me because if somebody goes down in this Galaxy lineup, Jordan, they can't do anything to add. They don't have a summer transfer window. So the only thing they can do is add MLS quality players up until that certain point in April that he talked about. So I think the Galaxy will be okay. I think they're a playoff team, especially if they incorporate this new playoff system, which is crap. But if they do this, I think that they are a playoff team. But I would state what Gio did. I think that they could see the bottom half of that playoffs, maybe even out of it if things don't quite bounce the right way. Throw in Chris Klein being an absolute distraction. So that's my thoughts. How do you feel? Anything different from what you felt before?
That's a good question. I'm actually kind of more down on LAFC than I was going into this. Just the loss of Chicho Arango, seems to be something that I think is a mistake. And I've kind of thought that way the whole time, right? Like we were talking to Gio, I said, they're trying to sell him in the summer last year. And I'm like, why? We agreed last year, MLS Cup or bust for this team. And you're going to get rid of a guy that's scoring goals for you. Like, that didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense. And I guess with the Galaxy side of things, I guess I'm a little down on them too, because hearing his answer about, well, it's just Vanny doesn't like playing with two strikers. Get over it. You're a professional manager, and this drives me nuts, right? This drives me nuts with Greg, Jesse Marsh, any person that is just beholden to the system that may not even fit the players he has, or if his players fit better in a different system, then change it, right? Like, you can't be a specialist in one thing. I'm sorry, you can't. It doesn't make any sense. It limits you as a manager. It limits what jobs you can take. It limits your success. Like, and I know this is going to sound dumb, right? But like, okay, when I play FIFA, I know this is not real life, so don't come at me. But when I play FIFA, I don't think, oh, I love playing 4-3-3. I am going to change this team to it. I usually play whatever team their formation already is, and I make those players work in that system. Now, that's a video game. But in real life, I think you should be able to do the same thing. I think you should be able to look at it and say, this player is scoring goals, and he's 23 years old, Yelovich. Do I really want to push him out to where he pulls an Arango and wants to leave because he's not getting playing time, or he's coming in the 60th, 70th minute every single week? Or do I find a way to satisfy him and also help me score goals that is ultimately going to help push me up the table as well? And that, especially when you have Chicharito, who's been so inconsistent with injuries, like there's got to be a way to get both of them on the team in the starting 11. I don't care if you like playing with two at the top or not. Change your ways. I always think managers should have backup options for formations. I think they should have, if something's not working, being able to adapt and say, all right, now we're doing this. Tell the team, to the sub that's coming in. So I guess I'm a little down on Vanny in that sense of it, but I think they'll work it out. I think they'll make the playoffs, not to spoil my prediction, but I mean, what, only 8 teams are going to miss the playoffs? Is that right? If they do 9 and you have 18 out of 29, no, 11 teams, sorry. 11 teams are going to miss the playoffs out of 29 teams, which is a lot. A lot of teams making it, not a lot of teams missing it. You pretty much, sorry, this is going to be somebody getting caught with a stray here, but you pretty much have to be like the Chicago Fire to miss the playoffs this year.
Jordan, are you sure it's not the NYCFC Chicago Fire? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Dang, man, the Chicago Fire fans just like completely.
They're like, "What the hell did we do?"
Why are we like the only team you can think of when St. Louis is new? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Don't worry, Houston will join you. Chicago.
Yeah, probably. But no, I mean, that's kind of the downside is, again, not to get too much into this if you don't know what we're talking about playoff-wise, reports are out that they're still looking at the best of 3 and that they're looking at, I guess, getting those extra games in from having 2 extra teams join. Look, 14 out of 28 is ridiculous as well. That is exactly half the teams. We're now going to 18, possibly out of 29. It's more than half. And my point being, not sorry for the Chicago Fire fans, but my point being is you have to be a team that like is not expected to make the playoffs to like miss the playoffs. Like that is what the goal is going to. Every team is going to have the goal of making the playoffs. But I guess maybe that might put people on the hot seat more, right? If you miss the playoffs after they expand them again, you're like, damn, we really suck. Like, we have to rebuild. Like, that is something that is just ridiculous if they go through with that. And the fact that we don't know it, almost 2 weeks out of the opening, 2.5 weeks out from opening game that we have no idea how the playoffs work, is awful. Is awful. I don't know if they're trying to pull an NFL and do like some sort of schedule reveal on the darn Apple TV now. And they're like, the playoff system is, and they open up an envelope. But they got to get this stuff in line sooner. The playoffs last year worked very well. Very well. Maybe that's why they're trying to change them, because they ended up with the 2-1 seeds. And they're like, not enough parity. Like, I don't know what's making them want to change it other than just giving Apple more games. And when you're looking at changing your playoffs that worked just because of money reasons and giving your partner more games, it's not a good look. And I'm glad to see everybody pretty much calling this out, by the way. I haven't seen anybody like, woo, I love best of 3, and I love having more than half the teams in the playoffs. Rant over, I guess.
No, it's the worst. I agree.
But like you said, Logan, it makes our job a lot easier, right? It's like, oh yeah,
have gotten easy. Everybody makes the
successful season, make the playoffs.
Right. If you don't, you suck.
If you don't, you really suck. Yeah.
Find a new club.
Find a new club. All right. Well, that'll wrap us up for this LA episode. Next episode, which is our live Wednesday episode, we're going to be talking San Jose Quakes, RSL, and the Rapids. See which one of those we think will miss the playoffs.
Maybe all of them.
maybe those 3 will be the unlucky ones. But if you want to give us a follow, you can reach us at Stateside Show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or email us statesideshow@gmail.com. And yeah, the next episode of our episode 3 Ted Lasso recap will also be coming out on Wednesday as well. So I hope everyone is enjoying that. We're actually getting a good amount of listens on those. So I appreciate everyone sticking with us and talking some Ted Lasso as we gear up for season 3. But yeah, that wraps us up here. I hope everyone's having a good week. We'll catch you next time talking those 3 other Western Conference teams. And we also have to catch up on some other previews next week as well. So a lot coming at you here. But thank you for watching or listening.